Hey, what's up, guys? Alright, so we got another amazing chapter of Black CLover out this week, and this chapter did pretty much what I'm sure a lot of us expected it to do. I mean, it was literally just epilogue part 1 to the finale of this entire arc, because it pretty much did a great job of addressing a lot of the hanging plot threads left over from the arc, especially the plot thread of what's exactly going to happen with the elves. And basically, that's something an epilogue should do, and the way it was formatted definitely felt like an epilogue. It just, because of the fact that it didn't hit all of the hanging plot threads and that there's a few things left over, you could tell that was only just like a part 1 to it. But yeah, like I said, it actually was formatted the way epilogue should be formatted, starting off with some comedic elements in the very beginning of the chapter, having a lot of the chapter address a lot of emotional moments that actually needed to be addressed by the end of the arc. And the chapter even managed to end with a moment where we get to see a passing of the torch between Asta and Lick. And this moment is actually really important to the series because of the fact that whenever you have a character who inherits another person's abilities or weapons, you need to see that moment where they are basically, where the torch is passed to them, either by the original owner themselves or spiritually by someone who is close to the owner who approves of them being the new wielder. And plus, the scene actually worked from a narrative standpoint because of the fact that it's not only Lick handing over his grimoire and his swords over to Asta to use from now on, it's also basically Lick who, when he was alive, had the dream of basically creating a world where everyone can live equally. We see him basically officially passing that dream on to Asta, who already originally had that dream, but now that his predecessor, the one who actually had his abilities before him, well, obviously not his anti-magic abilities, but you know what I mean, his swords and his grimoire, the fact that he is basically inheriting that responsibility or that dream gives him even more purpose in, completing it now. We get this funny scene in the very beginning of the chapter between Asta, Mimosa, Charmy, and Belle. And it's actually kind of refreshing because Belle, correct me if I'm wrong, but Belle has not been apparent in these past, I want to say, at least 6 or so chapters. I don't remember seeing much of her, if any at all. So it was actually kind of refreshing to see her and, her obsessiveness with all over again. Seeing her fight kind of with Charmy about the fact that, Charmy is crushing on and the fact that she's hugging him so tightly in this chapter. But a majority of the chapter pretty much focused on exactly what is going to happen with the elves inside the country. Because as soon as they get out of the castle, they remember no one outside of the Dark Castle knows the truth about what happens. The fact that the demon was behind everything and that there's no real animosity between the elves and humans anymore. So the basic question they have is how will they actually end up solving the situation and stopping the fighting and, basically freeing the elves from their anger and their hatred. And basically the plan they come up with is the fact that Patri will sacrifice himself by letting his spirit finally go off to heaven or hell, wherever his spirit will end up going, giving his body back to William Vengeance, and then using a combination of William Vengeance's tree magic and Lick's ability to connect with all elves, and use that to transmit all the information that they know about what happened with the demon to the rest of the elves, and then make the elves ascend to heaven, basically releasing them from their bodies. And you know what? This actually came as a huge shock to me because even though I knew at some point we had to address what was going to happen with Patri and William Vengeance because of their basically actions and their hand in playing out all of this, the fact that they were the ones who originally started this entire war, even though they were misguided by the demon, they were still the ones who were behind everything altogether. I knew we had to address that at some point, but with the way that in chapter 109, I believe it was chapter 109, where we actually got to see that scene where Lick and Lumiere were basically passing the torch of, protecting humanity onto Patri when they basically set up their own death flags. I assumed that at that moment that we would actually get to see Patri stay in the current timeline, continue sharing the body with William, and the two of them would atone for everything they've done. But no, instead Patri's actually going to just ascend to heaven, and he's going to leave the atoning to basically William, who even says in this chapter that he plans on atoning for everything he's done. We get a quick glance at Rades, and we actually get to see him being a little upset about the fact that he's not going to get his revenge, which actually surprised me. I thought at some point in this chapter we actually would get a surprise moment where when Patri goes to, give up his body, or when William actually gains control of his body again, that Rades will take the moment to get his revenge in that scene. But instead, he kind of sits back. And we even get a scene with Valtos and Patri during the chapter where we actually get to see the two of them kind of reconcile, where even though Valtos still feels betrayed by Patri, he still feels a great deal of respect for him because, as we see in the chapter, flashback, true Valtus's previous life before he met up with Patri, he seemingly was on death's row, like he was about to die on the street, and Patri was the one who saved him. So even though he does feel betrayed by him, he still owes a great deal of respect in his life to him. Anyway, all the elves actually end up getting ascended to heaven. They give their bodies back to the humans. And this actually leads to two kind of emotional scenes. The first one is between Yami and Sharla, the elf that was inhabiting Sharla's body. We see the fact that the two of them actually did gain a mutual respect for each other. They became sort of friends throughout everything they've been through, from the fight they had earlier on in the arc to basically everything that happened with them fighting side by side against a demon. And we've been getting a moment where, unlike every other character in the series, Yami actually calls her by her name. Instead of soon princess or anything like that, he actually calls her by her name, and she ascends to heaven, basically, wishing him luck in the future, or basically saying that, she respected him. We also get a scene between Raya, Veto, and Fauna saying goodbye to Lick because he's actually ascending with the rest of the elves. And basically they tell him that they're actually going to be sticking around on Earth because of the fact that when they inhabited their bodies, they had a strong connection to the living world because of the fact that their bodies actually did not originally have souls in them anymore. So that means that now they can actually just walk around on Earth freely without actually being or basically they're too strong now. Their connection to Earth is too strong for As's sword to actually ascend them to heaven. Now this makes sense. This actually makes a lot of sense for Raya because he's actually still inhabiting his original body. But I'm kind of questioning this logic when it comes to Veto and Fauna because of the fact that they are actually just like Lick. Their souls are inhabiting artificial bodies right now. That's the reason why they're alive, because Veto had died when he fought against Asta and the rest of the Black Bulls during the Water Temple arc, and then his body was officially destroyed by Yami. And when it comes to Fauna, her soul was actually forcibly released from the human father's body once she regained control of it. So they really don't have any connection to those host bodies that they had anymore. Now that the fact that they're in official or artificial bodies, shouldn't they ascend just like Lick did because of the fact that he was reincarnated into an artificial body? I'm sure the reason behind it is that basically their connections to the living world is actually just too strong now because of the fact that they were previously in human bodies that didn't have souls. So I guess just because of that, their souls have grown strong enough to resist the force ascension into heaven. I mean, that's literally the only logical thing I can think of to explain what exactly is going down in this chapter between the three of them. I mean, again, it could just be the fact that, it was a translation error, but assuming that this translation was right, then yeah, it's really the only logical thing I can think of to make it make sense. Also, on that note, when it comes to Fauna, does this mean that the human Fauna was actually officially dead when elf Fauna took over her body? Because I mean, I pretty much figured that out. I pretty much figured that she was at least on death's door, like she was pretty close to dead when Fauna, the elf, actually took over her body, and that's what saved her, and that's the reason why she was actually able to regain control of her body and be alive in the current day. But if she was actually officially dead because of the fact that, in this chapter they say that her body didn't have a soul in it anymore, then what does that mean for the Fauna that's running around right now waiting for Mars to come back from the Diamond Kingdom? Was she actually dead? Did her soul come back from heaven somehow? Or what exactly is the explanation to that? I don't understand that situation at all when it comes to the explanation given in this chapter. And then the final touching scene we actually get near the end of the chapter is between Lumiere and Lick, where Lick is basically saying his goodbye to Lumiere, saying that he's ascending to heaven first because of the fact that Tetya has been waiting on him this entire time, a 500-year wait. He's got to go see his wife. And we actually do kind of get a little touching moment between him and Yuno, because Yuno does talk to him and say, hey, the elf inside of me, isn't he your son? And Lick just basically thanks him for letting him get to see his son one time before he ascends to heaven. Which, since his son is dead as well, he probably will actually get to see him, even though his son wasn't officially born yet. I don't know how exactly that would work, but he probably will get to see him and be reunited between the three of them, him, Tetya, and their son, in heaven, now that they're all going to be ascending that way. Also, it kind of makes me curious exactly why Lumiere didn't also go to heaven or also, die off in this chapter. And I'm guessing that the reason why he didn't is because in the next chapter, we're going to address something that's important to him or something that he needs to pass on to everyone else that's important. So maybe some kind of connection to the demon that he needs to let Asta know about, or maybe something along the lines of deciding who's going to be the next Magic Emperor. I don't know, but there has to be something important with Lumiere that he still has to do And that's the reason why he didn't pass on in this chapter with everyone else. Because this would have been, if he doesn't have anything important to do, this would have been the perfect chapter for him to pass on, just like Lich and all the other elves in this chapter. But anyway, guys, that's pretty much all that happens in the chapter. I do want to mention quickly, because I just actually re-looking through the chapter, I did notice this. There is a moment where right before Patri ends up, giving up his body and going off to heaven again, we see a moment where when he's saying goodbye to Lich, in the panel, and it's very small, you probably didn't even notice it, but in the panel we actually get to see Lich when he's saying goodbye to him. We notice that Lich has a black eye just like Patri does. Now, I went back a few chapters. I went back like at least to chapter 109 or 209 to see if, maybe Lich had that black eye kind of like Patri did, and I just haven't noticed it up to this point. But no, his eyes actually should be normal, so I guess that was just kind of error on Yuki Tabata's art style. I guess he just kind of accidentally filled in his eye, probably thinking he was coloring Patri, but he was actually drawing Lich in that scene. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the chapter. That's pretty much it for the review. I can't wait to see what happens in next week's chapter, see exactly how Epilogue Part 2 goes down. Like I said, I'm expecting something with Lumiere to go down, something important, either him giving up important information, finding out something very important between him and Sekre, or maybe just him, deciding who's going to be the one to inherit his title as the next Magic Emperor. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the chapter. It's it for the review. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, drop me a like, subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. Comment down below your thoughts and theories on what's going to be coming next in the series. I see a lot of people claiming that they want to see the dwarves come next. I personally don't want to see that happen just yet, but let me know in the comment section down below what arc you guys want to see come up next. But that's it for the video, guys. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you all later. Peace.